upset. When I say we, that's me and my husband. And we have three, I say young children, we have 11, 7 and 5, so, you know, a little bit of a range. So my story started back in 2021, the end of 2021. I suddenly developed a lump in my throat. I was struggling to swallow. It just felt like I had an obstruction there. Every time that I did swallow, I just felt like I couldn't quite get it down. So back then, doing what I used to do, I just go to the doctors, and I sat in the doctor's office, and he had a look down my throat, and he said it could potentially be acid reflux, but it could also potentially be strep throat. We don't know which it is, so we're going to give you medication for both to cover what it could potentially be. So I came away with omeprazole, which I'm sure many people are aware of, which is a PPI, an acid blocker for the acid reflux. And I also came away with antibiotics for strep throat. So I came away all happy, thinking, right, great, got my answer, I'm going to be healed like within 2 days or something. Came home, started taking both medications straight away, and within a week, I think it took about a week, I was just worse than I actually was in the beginning. So at this point I realised something's not quite right. It's definitely not the strep throat if the antibiotics aren't working. It could potentially be the acid reflux, but I just still wasn't sure. So I phoned the doctor, and they didn't want to see me, they just spoke to me over the phone. They said, I think the best thing that we can do for you is to double the strength of your omeprazole. So instead of taking just 1 in the morning, now take 2 in the morning. So again, great, yeah, I'm feeling happy. I think this is what's going to cure me. So start taking the 2 omeprazole. Again, I left it about a week and not feeling any better. I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. And at this point, everything that I'm eating, I'm starting to react to. So every meal, all of a sudden my eyes start swelling, all of a sudden I'm like having ulcers in my mouth, swollen glands, just everything was going wrong. And I was just feeling worse and worse as time went on. Again, I phone the doctor, and I say, what's going on? And they say, we think we better put you in for a camera down the throat, an endoscopy. So great, yeah, so go in and have my endoscopy. I had sedation to make the process more comfortable. After the endoscopy, I was sent on my way. Bearing in mind, I was a little bit, from the sedation, I wasn't quite with it. I wasn't completely out of it, but I just wasn't quite with it. My husband was waiting outside to pick me up in the car. I got in the car and he says, well, how did you get on? And I'm like, oh, I don't know actually. Nobody's said anything to me. I don't actually know, but I have got this piece of paper that I come away with. So we opened the piece of paper, and there it says that I have grade A esophagitis and lesions. So I wasn't even explained to what this even is. I have no idea. I have no medical background. I have no idea what esophagitis is. I have no idea what lesions are. But it did say that they had taken biopsies of it. So as soon as I saw the word biopsies, I'm like, that's bad. So I get home and I ring the hospital and I just say, can somebody please explain to me what my diagnosis was? I have no idea. So they said, yeah, you've got grade A esophagitis. I did actually look it up on Google before, so I had a little bit of an idea of what the esophagitis was, where the acid reflux is coming back up, and it's just basically scarred my throat, my esophagus. It's just scarred it, and the tight feeling that I was getting was just where it was scarred and kind of closed up. So they said, that's what it is. We took the biopsies because we found a couple of lesions that don't look very good, so we want to send those off and get some results from those. So obviously at that time, it was a very hard time for me because in my head, all I could think of was, oh my goodness, I've got cancer. And that was all I could think of then for a little while. I also had to say to them, right, that's very well, you've given me my diagnosis, but so where do we go from here? What do we do about this? So they said, the medication that you were on, the omeprazole, that is the answer to healing your problem. And I'm thinking, is it? I've been on this omeprazole now for weeks and nothing's changed. I'm just getting worse and worse. So they said, what we'll do is we'll now double your double dose. So I'm now, at this point, I'm currently on 2 omeprazole in the morning, and they then told me to take 2 omeprazole in the evening. So again, I went away doing that, actually thinking maybe I'm somebody who just needs a bit more medication to make me feel better. But I just had such trust in the doctors, like whatever they said was gospel to me, and I just thought they had my back, so I'm doing whatever they said. So I went away and done that, and as you can probably guess, nothing happened. I just got worse and worse again, and at this point I just fell into such a deep depression. I wasn't myself. I couldn't eat anything. I was excluded socially. I'm sure many of you can relate. Everything is revolved around food. So I'd be invited out for dinner. I'd be invited around somebody's house. They say, come over for dinner. Come to a party. They've got a great big spread there. Come to a barbecue. And I'm just like, I can't do any of this. I can't eat. At this point, I've gone down to, apologies, I don't know pounds, so I'm going to use stones. I went down to 7.5 stone, sorry. And today I'm 9.5 stone, and I think 9.5 stone is a good weight, a good healthy weight. So if you imagine me 2 stone less than what I am now, I was very skinny. I didn't look good. And my husband actually said at one point, he said, we've got to do something because he said, I can see all your spine like through your t-shirt in the back, and it just doesn't look nice. So at this point we knew I was kind of in trouble. So from that moment on, I went to the doctor. I went back to the doctor. I didn't really, at this point, I didn't really know if I wanted to, but I was just in a desperate place. I'd gone into this deep depression. I was waking up every single morning, and my thoughts were, again, sorry if I get emotional, but my thoughts were just, I didn't want to wake up. That's how it was. So, sorry. I wasn't looking after my children. I would wake up, I'd come down, sit on the sofa, I'd ignore them. I was not a good wife, I was not a good man. And it was just the worst place I was in my entire life. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. I'll get back to it. So I went back to the doctor, and I basically broke down like this in the doctor's surgery, and I just said, I begged, I said, I need help, I need somebody to help me, I'm not well. And I just felt like before this point I'd just been brushed off and brushed off and brushed off. And I just broke down in tears, and I said, I can't eat anything, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, I'm so like socially excluded. And he had a look on his screen, he saw the medication I was on, and he said, I don't know why you're crying. He said, you're on the medication that should make you better. On omeprazole, you should be able to eat whatever you want to eat and be fine. So at this point, it made me feel worse, because I'm like, why me? I'm like, why, if this works for everybody else, why am I taking this much omeprazole and being told that I should be able to eat what I want to eat, which at the time, I will admit, was the standard Western diet. I was eating junk food. Not only junk food, I had like what I would say a balanced diet, but I did have the odd, like Richard was saying, takeaway, and I had the odd thing. So I was just thinking, why can't I eat what I want to eat and not get better? Anyway, so he just said to me, he said, I can tell that you have a bit of anxiety and depression, so we're going to put you on some antidepressants. So from that visit to the doctor, I get given antidepressants. So I come away, and I actually start taking these antidepressants because I was desperate. I was going to do absolutely anything. I start taking the antidepressants, and I think about 2 or 3 days in, I just had a moment where I was just like, what am I doing? I'm on these 4 omeprazole, and I'm thinking, these omeprazole aren't even making me feel any better, so why am I taking them? And same with the antidepressants. I know it was only like 2 or 3 days in, but I just had this moment where I was just like, I'm not taking any medication. None of this is making me any better. So from that point, I literally just got all the medication, I just threw it in the bin, and I thought, I'm done with this. And I thought, I'm on my own here. I've got to figure out myself how I get myself better, because nobody else is helping me. So with that, I decided to search for a nutritionist. So I found a nutritionist who was local to me. She was a naturopath and also a herbalist. And she was great in the beginning. So she was the first person who actually sat me down and felt she sat me down for about 2 hours and she asked me my whole history of my life. She wanted to know what vaccinations I had, she wanted to know past medication, past illnesses. She literally unpicked my whole life in 2 hours, and I came away from there feeling like I've actually been listened to today, somebody's listened to me, which was something, and that actually that alone made me feel so much better. But she also told me to cut out the gluten and cut out dairy, like 2 of the main inflammatory food groups. So I went away and I did that, which I did. I must admit, it took away the lump feeling in my throat, so I thought I'm on something here, this is helping. But she also told me, again, I think a lot of us can relate to the same thing, to not eat fat, and if I was to eat animal protein, make sure it's chicken. If it's chicken, don't eat the skin. If it's salmon, don't eat the skin. But she basically told me to eat chicken and salmon, nothing else, definitely no red meat. And she said you want a real diverse range of vegetables and grains in your diet. So she had told me that I had a candida overgrowth in my gut, and this was the issue that I needed to sort out. So I come away, I cut out the gluten and the dairy, and I literally just went on to this low-fat protein diet, and I was having about 6 or 7 different vegetables a day with my meals, and then just filled with quinoa or rice, like all different grains. I had it piled high, and I would eat that meal. I finished the meal, and I could eat that 2 or 3 times over because I was starving. And remember, at this point as well, I'm still at 7.5 stone, so my body is just physically in a starved state. Because of being starving, I decided that I was going to add porridge oats in. So, and I basically used that as a kind of dessert. So after every meal, because I was still so hungry, I would then make myself a big bowl of porridge with kefir, however anybody says it. And that would make me feel full. And I was doing that 2 or 3 times a day to make me feel like I wasn't stuffing. On top of that, it was forced upon me by my nutritionist that fibre feeds the good bacteria, so get all the fibre that you can in. And I decided off my own back that I'm going to get a fibre supplement as well. So I found this product called inulin, and every meal, every bowl of porridge, I would just take a scoop and I would sprinkle, because I'm just like, I'm feeding this good bacteria, I'm getting this bad bacteria out. So I sprinkle it all with this inulin powder. So it wasn't long after that. I'd never ever suffered with constipation in my life before, but after switching to this diet, all of a sudden I'm constipated. And one day the constipation got so bad, I was just doubled up in pain, and I just did not know what to do with myself. I could not walk. I was in such agony. My husband came in that night from milking, and he was like, oh my God, he's like, what is the matter with you? I said, I don't know. I said, I think I've just got really bad constipation. I said, I'm in so much pain and agony. At this point, I start throwing up. I'm just so bad. And he took me straight to the doctor, to the hospital, to the emergency room. And I got there, and this was actually 10 o'clock at night. I got to the hospital, and in that much pain and throwing up, and I did not get seen to 8 o'clock the next morning. So I eventually went in at 8 o'clock the next morning, and they took me in, and she pushed me this side, and she said, oh, I think you've got appendicitis. So, and I was adamant. I was like, I don't have appendicitis, it's really bad constipation, because that's just what it felt like to me. I just felt really badly constipated. So I went down, and it did turn out that I had a scan, it was appendicitis. They had to do an emergency operation and take my appendix out. So following the surgery, I get home. I wasn't really recovering very well, but at this point, again, I was really thin. I was weak, and it was coming up about 4 weeks after my surgery, and I still wasn't really recovering great. I still had that bloating, I still had pain, and I did look it up on the internet, and people were saying, oh, after like a week of having their appendix out, they were back to work, they were driving, and I'm like, why me? It's like 4 weeks, I'm not any better. But anyway, as time went on, I started to pick up a little bit. It was just a long recovery, and I felt like I could start cooking and get up and do things around the house again. So that day I was cooking roast lamb for my family. and I was out in the kitchen preparing the food, and I had to take the lamb out of the oven to baste the lamb, and then that was my moment that was meant to be. That lamb came out, and still to this day I just get lost for words. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a complete, I told you I didn't know how to say it. It was just it was just a knowing, and I just had every fibre of my body was just screaming at me, eat that lamb, you have to eat that lamb. And then my head goes, no, you can't eat fat. And my nutritionist told me the fat's the worst thing I can eat for acid reflux. And I'm just sort of like in this debate with myself, because I just had it was just such an urge that I have to eat this. Anyway, I didn't eat it, but I ended up going on the internet and I typed in, is eating meat really that bad for you? Just hoping that someone would say, no, it's not, you can eat that lamb now. So I go on, and of course, like the first first page of Google is just, no, you can't, like, eating meat is really bad, don't eat it. And then I eventually scrolled down, and I can't even remember what it was, but it was just some sort of thing on the Carnivore site, which I had never even heard of, didn't even have a clue about it. So that sort of got that in my mind. I started reading, and then that was just, I was reading it all, and I'm just thinking, do you know what, that everything that they're saying there just makes perfect sense. It just sounds so natural, so easy. Like, why haven't we ever thought of this before? Like, why do we think it's normal that we're eating all this junk food that's made in a factory? All these things just started coming to me, and I'm just like, this is right. Like, it just felt so right. So I decided to look into it a bit more. You fall into a bit of go into a rabbit hole, and you start researching and going more and more and more. So I decided I'm going to go onto YouTube, and this is where I'm forever grateful to Kerry, because I found his 30-day.
You're making me cry too now.
I found his 30-day carnivore video. I watched it, and he had told everybody exactly what he had healed. And I was sat there, and I was just like, I know, I've got to do this. This is for me. I have no other option. I have no other, I'm all out of ideas. I remember at this time I'm like suicidal, so I'm at a desperate state where I need to do something. I saw Kerry's testimonial, and I decided that's it, I'm going straight in. So the next day I woke up and I had lamb chops for breakfast. Luckily we had some in the freezer anyway. So I started straight away, and honestly, it's just the best thing that's ever happened to me. So slowly things just started to go away. The depression, the anxiety. I didn't even know I had anxiety. If you'd asked me that, I would say no, I don't suffer from it. But now I don't have it. I know full well that I used to have anxiety. So it was just things like, you just look at the negative side of life. I just couldn't see the positive in anything. So my brain would just naturally go to what's the worst case scenario. And it's actually really just not a nice way to live. And when you're out of the fear, you don't have any fear. I can literally stand here and just say I don't have any fears. I don't live my life in fear. I'm a big believer that everything's meant to happen, everything's meant to be. But when you don't have any fears, you don't get held back, because there's nothing there to hold you back. So it's just such a refreshing, like rejuvenating feeling to just have no fear in life. So I absolutely was crippled with anxiety, but I just had no idea. So that all went away. Another thing that went away was tinnitus. I suffered from tinnitus my whole life. So I was actually like, I won't go like too much into it, because I spent a lot of time now. But I was quite ill growing up, which I just thought was normal. I thought human beings get ill, and that's what it is. But I had like chronic UTIs. I used to get gluer, chronic UTIs. I was just on so many antibiotics, constantly ill. And I had tinnitus my whole life, and I actually had that checked out at, I paid privately to have it checked out at ENT, and they just said it's something you've got to live with and can't do anything. It wasn't until I was on a YouTube channel and I was on somebody's comments, and somebody said, oh, my tinnitus went away. And I literally sat there and was like, so's mine, I can't hear the ringing. So that went away. I've had a whole host of things that, again, like I didn't even really know the symptoms. Things like verrucas clearing up on my feet, I had them my whole life. Just general aches and pains, arthritis, Raynaud's syndrome. Honestly, I've got a whole list of things that just went away, and now I have nothing, and I'm literally living my best life. And like Kerry said, the main thing, like overcoming for me, was the depression, the anxiety, which I didn't even know I had. Overcoming all of these things, and I can now say that I'm just the best version of myself I've ever been, and there's just no going back.